It's a new year for PlayStation 4 owners, and that means a slew of new and exciting games to be looking forward to. And in this video, we're gonna go over all of the games coming to the PlayStation 4 in January. January isn't traditionally known to be a juggernaut of a month for game releases. We are just coming off the fall. However, this January has a lot of exciting releases coming to the PlayStation 4. We were actually gonna get another game on top of all of these in Ni no Kuni 2. Unfortunately, Level 5 and Bandai Namco decided to delay that for further polishing, and that game will now be releasing in March. Still, there are a lot of great games to be looking forward to, and all that means is your wallet is going to be a little bit safe come January, but there are still a ton of great games to be looking forward to. Let's get right into this with the first big game. Of course, it's Monster Hunter World, the latest in the Monster Hunter franchise, one of the most iconic franchises in all of gaming, but a franchise that recently has been relegated to Nintendo platforms. The 3DS saw a lot of Monster Hunter games. We got Monster Hunter games on the Wii and the Wii U. Japan got a Monster Hunter game on the Switch, but now Monster Hunter is coming back to the PlayStation 4, and what that means is the shackles are coming off. While Monster Hunter was a great experience on the Nintendo platforms are traditionally a bit weaker, but when you look at Monster Hunter World, you can tell it's a current generation title, and it looks gorgeous. The open world is set to be huge and seamless with very little loading screens, and we've already gotten a taste of the game with the Monster Hunter World beta, and that was fantastic, so hopefully the full game shapes up the same way. Monster Hunter World hits January 26th. Dragon Ball FighterZ. Another game that was announced at E3 was Dragon Ball FighterZ, a game that took everybody by surprise and was one of the surprise great announcements at the event. It's a very artistic fighter being developed by Arc System Works, the guys behind the BlazBlue and Guilty Gear franchise, and aesthetically when you look at Dragon Ball FighterZ, you can definitely see resemblance to those titles. Combat-wise, the game looks very stylish, with a lot of the moves that the characters do translating very well from the anime to the game. Hopefully it's packed with a decent amount of content, but Dragon Ball FighterZ hits the PlayStation 4 on January 26th. Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. From one fighting game of a popular franchise to another fighting game of a popular franchise, Dissidia Final Fantasy NT is the latest in the Dissidia franchise, which you might not know a lot about. Dissidia Final Fantasy was actually released on the PlayStation Portable. It also saw a sequel. It was actually a prequel title, but a follow-up in Dissidia Duodecim. And Dissidia Final Fantasy has actually been a big arcade title as well in Japan, but now it's being brought over to the PlayStation 4 by Tecmo Koei in the form of Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. Visually, the games look really good, and of course, it's a big step up graphically from the PlayStation Portable version. It does see a shift in the gameplay. Now it's focused around team battles, so that'll be an interesting take on the Dissidia formula, and hopefully the single-player mode is up to par, because that's an element that the PSP games did really well.
The higher your bravery rises, the more powerful your HP attacks become. When your bravery is higher than your opponent's HP, they can be incapacitated with an HP attack. You can choose from over 20 playable characters that belong to one of 4 battle types to complete your unique combat lineup.
The speedy assassin, the hard-hitting vanguard, the spell-wielding marksman, and the wild card specialist.
Lost Sphere. Lost Sphere is the latest game from Tokyo RPG Factory, a studio that's not that well known, but they're the guys behind I Am Setsuna, a very old school nostalgic RPG, and while that game wasn't perfect, it did tell a great story, have a great visual style, and it was a solid all-around game, and it was a pretty good debut title for Tokyo RPG Factory. Their latest title is Lost Sphere, and visually and stylistically it follows the same premise of I Am Setsuna. It's a very visually pleasing game, and it looks to be very story-driven as well. If you're a fan of old school RPGs, Tokyo RPG Factory is doing a great job of taking that formula and modernizing it so it is playable in today's gaming environment. Hopefully they can build upon the foundation they set with I Am Setsuna. Lost Sphere hits the PlayStation 4 on January 23rd. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. Digimon games have not been that notable in the last decade. Bandai Namco is trying to change that. They'd released Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth back in 2016, and now we have a follow-up title in Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. Hacker's Memory is gonna be a lot more of the same of Cyber Sleuth. It actually reuses a lot of the maps and arenas, which is kind of disappointing, but hopefully there's enough new content as well to make it relatively engaging. There are obviously gonna be a slew of new Digimons introduced, and the thing about Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth was that game had a really solid story as well, so hopefully Hacker's Memory can follow up on that. While these games probably won't hit the levels of the Pokemon titles, there is a market for them, and it'll be exciting to see another title when Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory hits January 19th. Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. Street Fighter V was one of the most controversial games of this generation. Street Fighter is one of the most iconic franchises in all of gaming, so you'd have to assume that ardent fans are gonna be very excited for it. However, Street Fighter V released as a full retail priced game, and it didn't have a lot of content to it. However, through updates, the experience has gotten better, and now we have the first major update with Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. It'll be a $40 release, however, if you already own the original version, it'll just be a free update, so that's fantastic. A lot of the times, Capcom would release several of these games, and you would have to buy them every single time, so that's great that it's just releasing as a free update. And the game itself will feature all of the original playable characters, including 12 DLC fighters in arcade mode, which was absent in the original, and new modes such as the extra battle mode, as well as selectable V-triggers, and on top of that, upgraded visuals. Street Fighter V Arcade Edition is gonna hit the PS4 on January 16th. And finally, The Inpatient. The Inpatient is a psychological horror game being developed by Supermassive Games. Supermassive Games may not be a studio that you're aware of, but those are the guys that also put out Until Dawn, which was one of the sleeper hits on the PlayStation 4. That was a great game. And now we have The Inpatient, which is actually set 60 years before the events of Until Dawn. The game itself is played from a first-person perspective, and you control a patient whose gender is up to you to choose. That patient is suffering from amnesia within the Blackwood Sanatorium and intent on reclaiming their memories. This is also a PlayStation VR title, so that'll be an interesting take on the psychological horror game genre. Supermassive Games has worked on a VR title before in Until Dawn Rush of Blood. However, that was an on-rail shooter. This is a different kind of experience, so hopefully they deliver on it. The Inpatient hits the PlayStation 4 on January 23rd. So that wraps up all of the PlayStation 4 games coming in January 2018. What do you think? Which PlayStation 4 games are you the most excited for next month? Let us know in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.